Welcome back to Game Galaxy, and today we're going to talk about turning all of this into this. Stay tuned. So what exactly is this thing? It's a Raspberry Pi 3 Model B single motherboard computer. That's right, this little credit card size thing is actually a computer. You can do all kinds of fun things with Raspberry Pis, from having it be a low-power PC that runs Linux, cool projects, or for the purpose of this video, you can turn this thing into an awesome retro emulation gaming machine using a piece of software called Retropie. Now, before we get more in depth, my little disclaimer, for those of you who have watched the show for a while, you know I'm a big proponent of emulation as far as preserving the preservation of video games. But my one disclaimer for it is, if there's companies out there that still make their older IPs and games available to you digitally and to us as consumers digitally, I fully stand behind and support paying for those games that are older that are still available. There's some people out there that might be like, why would I pay Nintendo $7 or $8 to, get The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past on my 3DS or my Wii, and when I could just get a ROM and emulate it? And my answer to that is, the reason we should be supporting vehicles of distribution like that is because if you love video games as an art form as I do, and have passion like I do for sharing those experiences with new and possibly younger audiences, then we should be supporting that, as these makes these older classics available to new and possibly younger audiences to experience these kind of adventures, and that's why I support that. On the contrary, if a company hasn't re-released one of their IPs ever, for example Snatcher on Sega CD, and Snatcher's a great example of collectors just buying them all so they can sniff it and put it on their shelves. But the point is, if it hasn't been re-released and you're spending hundreds of dollars to get a physical copy of something that the money isn't going to directly go to the people who created it or the company, then you're a fool. And I know that's going to strike a nerve with a lot of collectors out there, but that's okay. Sometimes y'all need your nerves plucked a little bit. I just think it's foolish because, it's going to come a time, it's very sad to say, but these cartridges and discs are eventually going to degrade. And emulation is a great way to preserve that and preserve the legacy. And that all aside, my number one biggest thing that I care about is video quality and fidelity. And I've never been the kind of person that's like, yes, give me more scan lines. I've never been that. I want the clearest, crisp picture. And the Raspberry Pi 3 will give you that with its beautiful 1080p HDMI output. Now, for those of you who do want to maybe build this and use this on a CRTV and get that old school feel, you still can do that. There is a composite video out. You'll just need a breakout cable. So that there is that option. But me personally, I like playing these retro games in 1080p clarity, but it still has all the pixels and all that, just, not crappy video quality. So now that you've seen the guts, I'm going to go ahead and put this in its case and talk about what you need to get your own Retropie started. So obviously you'll need the motherboard, which is around $35. I think it's been bumping up in popularity after a couple of months, so it might be $40, but it should be $35. You will need a micro SD card, which will work as your hard drive for it, and get yourself a little case. The one I'm going to build right here is just the official Raspberry Pi 3 case, and you can see it just snaps together very beautifully. Try to do this quickly here. You'll need a USB controller as well. Once you get all of this stuff, you can head on over to the Retropie website and download the disk image for Retropie. And look at that. Isn't that a nice little cool case? It's very compact, sleek. I don't know if you can see there, it's got a raspberry on there. That's the Raspberry Pi logo. On the bottom, I've got little plastic feet things so it doesn't slide around. And here are your outputs, AV, HDMI, and this is where your power will go. And a little slot for the SD where you can take it in and out there. 4 USB ports and Ethernet, which you won't be using because the Raspberry Pi 3 Model B has onboard Wi-Fi. So once you have your case and your power supply and all that jazz, you just head on over to the Retropie website and download the latest image of the Retropie software and you have to flash it onto the SD card. If you're on Mac, I was using a program called Apple Pie Baker where you just flash the image to it. If you're on Windows, you could use a program called Win32 Disk Imager. Another thing you can get is a USB extension cable to get some distance between you and the TV for your USB controller. Here I have the iBuffalo USB Classic Gamepad. Everybody should have one of these. I've said it over and over again. I love this controller. So that way I can put some distance between me and the television. And here we go. That's it's a pretty long distance. You can use Bluetooth controllers with this. However, I prefer to use USB controllers because, as you know from my other video, I have quite the collection of USB controllers, and I like to use the controller based on what system I'm playing. So let's dive into the actual Retropie software. Once you connect the power to the Pi, it will boot up straight into Retropie, which uses Emulation Station as the front end for the RetroArch emulators. Here you can set up controllers by following the on-screen prompts and then you're ready to go. There's a couple of ways to transfer ROMs to the system, and I prefer using an FTP program once you've connected your Pi via Wi-Fi. And you can see I have thousands of games at my fingertips. I've also scraped databases for box art, and I'm using the Pixel theme on Emulation Station. It's absolutely the best. What's so great about Retropie is you control everything from your controller. You can save and load states and quit a game just by pressing the start and select buttons together. It also creates save game files, so if the game has a save feature, you can just use that as if you were playing on the console and not even use save states. The emulation is smooth and works comfortably all the way up to N64. N64 can be a little rocky at times, but PlayStation 1 and below runs perfectly. There's an immense amount of things you can emulate with Retropie, but I just use it for the big main retro consoles of my past. Retropie is seriously a game changer and will change your life if you love retro and old video games and emulation. You can experience all the great classics in HD on your television as if it were a console. For any of you out there looking for a robust emulation solution, I can't recommend getting yourself a Raspberry Pi enough and putting Retropie on it. And when you do, get yourself the iBuffalo Classic USB Gamepad, as the Emulation Station menus work very well with the Super Nintendo layout. And if you want any more USB controller suggestions, check out my video on USB controllers. This is such a game changer, and I've been dying to talk about this for months, and I've just been too busy. But let me know in the comments if you guys want me to do a full step-by-step comprehensive setup video. I didn't want to focus on it for this video because I feel like there's enough information out there for people to do it. But if enough people want it, I will do it, because what I think I could bring to the table is doing it in a very concise manner, where some of these videos drag on and on and on. So, yeah, Retropie, game changer, totally freaking awesome, and it's changed my life. Anyway, game on and take care.